right, hi everyone, and thank you all for staying behind and staying until now. So it's really great to be here. I am Nana Lee, senior researcher from Fleming Creative Consultancy, TFCC, and I just want to do a shout out to all the delegates from ASEAN and also Northeast Asia, because British Council has brought together about 10 senior policy makers, researchers, and creative leaders. So that's quite impressive. So let's give a round of applause here. Okay, so what we will discuss today is in terms of how the digital innovation ecosystem is realigning around a eastward shift in terms of content demand. And we'll also explore some of the opportunities in terms of collaboration for UK partners and particularly small creators. We'll keep it really casual. So I'll just start with some background information to give us a bit of a context to situate today's conversation. So big data points here. First of all, the global content market is projected to become a $3.5 trillion business in 2026, according to UNCTAD. And we're now witnessing how from Squid Games to the latest global hit of K-pop, Demon Hunter, I'm sure some of you with kids, you will have heard that before, to webtoons, animations, immersive games, you name it. Really, K-content now defines global youth culture in a way, including right here in the UK. So I would like to first start with Professor Lee in terms of, can you give us a bit of a state of play in terms of the innovation landscape in Korea and what makes your content industry so competitive? So perhaps name a few of the latest trends there.
Okay, thank you for the questions. South Korea is maintaining and continuing its very vibrant and very active and even effective ecosystem tailored to the culture and creative industries. And recently, the Korean government is participating in private sector-driven entrepreneurship and the creativity in terms of making the public-private partnership. Recently, the public institutions tailored at demands and expectations and requests by the private sector. The public institutions serve as an intermediary between the government and the private sector, the leaders, and the more the precise speaking in the individual creator, the creative professionals, and even startup and the SMEs, as well as large companies. So this ecosystem is very much democratic as well as effective market system to support the many the creative artists and the enterprises that are working together to produce the sustainable value and creative value chains, and even the jobs and earnings and industries, the many opportunities in terms of inclusivity. And the private sector, I would like to mention the large companies that try to make the shared platform in strategic partnership with the government. For example, the data platforms and the digital platforms and open government data, and the AI, the labs and institutions, very much widely open to the participant interested in making the values and effects and even the economic impact upon society. So I think that these the vibrant the participation and the collaborations very striking in South Korea. So the government policy, the private sector leadership. And one more thing, in the higher institutions and education institutions, very much important, the making a bridge between the government and the enterprise by making accomplishment, the research and development and expertise and knowledge and human capital that is very suitable to the entrepreneurial ecosystem for culture and creative industries.
Amazing. So that ecosystem approach that is really strong and coming together quite well. So we will now shift slightly to ASEAN. So I would like to first, again, give a bit of an overview in terms of ASEAN. So it is one of the third largest population bloc, only behind China and India. And 50% of that is Indonesia. So it's great to have Irene here with us that can comment a bit in terms of the role of how ASEAN is now playing in this increasingly globalized innovation and creative tech ecosystem. And particularly, I think ASEAN's collective commitment to how the role of the creative economy can contribute to sustainable development has been reaffirmed by a new framework called the ASEAN Creative Economy Sustainability Framework that was adopted in May this year, so quite recently. And in the framework, it has identified particularly gaming, animation, film, and digital content are those key drivers that will be able to transform local industries and also empower creative communities from a grassroots level. So can you also give us a bit of a state of play, an overview of what are the trends happening in the space of innovation in the content industry and how Indonesia play a role in this increasingly regionalized and globalized trade flow of content industry?
Sure. I think I'll start by giving a bit of context about Indonesia, right? Because a lot of people think that Indonesia is essentially Bali and that's it. So Indonesia Indonesia is one of the largest countries. It's an archipelago. We have more than 17,000 islands and 280 million people. So if you think about ASEAN, ASEAN has around 600 million population. And so almost 50% of them would be Indonesian. And in Indonesia itself, there are almost 1,000 languages spoken there. And so in the industry, right, in the whole world right now, as we see that the whole world is getting smaller. And one of the things that we want to avoid is that it becomes a monocultural world. And what Indonesia have is actually, we have too many cultures that even me as Indonesians continue to learn every single day. And you could imagine this will be the USP, or this will be like the dreamland, the la la land for anyone who's creative, who's looking to seek for something that's authentic, that's been there for centuries. And this is not only unique to Indonesia, it's just that we have a vast landscape. In ASEAN, people like to think that ASEAN is one chunk of a region of the same thing, right? But if you go to different countries, not only you'll have different cultures, but you would also have different landscape in different spaces. You'll be surprised that if you think about Indonesia, right, or ASEAN, you'll think that it's probably a tropical country that only have 1 or 2 seasons. And you would only have to wear shorts and t-shirts and that's it. But there are places in Indonesia that I just found out as well. That's how big the country is. That's up in the mountain where you could have a bit of snow on top. So you need a bit of jackets. Now, think of that as a culture, as your playground, as your lab. And then you bring it to the creative side, right? So what we are doing right now in Indonesia is we are cataloging the cultural elements that we have as the USP or foundations of what Indonesia creatives will be in the future, and making that relevant not only to the international crowd, but also to the youth of Indonesians. Because right now, I think in this panel, not in this panel, the previous panel, we talk about the crisis of continuation of culture to make sure that the humans, the future humans, will still remember what the culture is. So the key to that is to make sure it's relevant to the younger crowd. So that's what we are doing right now in the 4 areas that you mentioned, gaming, animations, and so on and so forth. The challenge that we have is that I don't know how many phone calls you guys get, but I got a lot of calls from parents worried that their kids are playing too much games. And so one of the things that the government is doing right now, at least in my ministry, is to tell and educate people how gaming could be relevant and could be a productive avenue for the kids, and not only in the form of playing, but also in the form of earning, because there are a lot of jobs being created in the digital space. And just on the digital landscape itself, right? Indonesia, I think, is number 1 when it comes to adoption rates for social media. Because we are always on our phones all the time, and I'm an introvert, but the majority of Indonesians are extroverted and they like to put their social lives out there. So for content creators, because I know content creations are always a part of panels in this morning, most content creators, they love going to Indonesia to see what is available there, because at the same time, they would also garner millions of followers through the one trip. So there are a couple of content creators that have come to Indonesia, and they've actually done that, and they've increased their viewership, and they've also increased their engagements and followers ultimately. So for the UK audience, I really would like to invite anyone who would like to come to Indonesia to see what's available there, because depends on what your streams are, there are lots of things that we could do on the creative space. And it's not only digital, yeah, on the physical side, because I see that the trends right now, when we talk about e-commerce, right, everyone needs to go digital. But right now, the way we see the trend is that we need to have phygital, which is physical and digital presence on the same avenues.
Yeah, we cover a lot of grounds there in terms of youth culture and also what Indonesia is currently doing and how its USP and try to attract creators from different parts of the world. And I would like to bring the conversation back to the UK in terms of thinking about some of the ways that UK partners can also play a role in this emerging, or realigning, let's put it that way, ecosystem that's in the East. Particularly, I'm interested, I know many of you also share the same interest in terms of inclusive innovation. So this is a burning issue right now as we have come through that initial hype of digital breakthrough. How do we make innovation and its process and this whole journey more sustainable, more ethical, fair, greener, more equitable by designing a global architecture of partnership that would bake in some of the ethos in terms of, say, sharing of know-how, interoperable tools, sustainable financing and business model, and also, say, ethical and right-based data collection practices. How do we make sure that these are actually in the architecture when we talk about partnership between ASEAN, Korea, and the UK? So my first question, this might be the million-dollar question. We're not going to solve global digital equity on stage in 20 minutes, but I would like to invite both of you to comment on what are some of the low-hanging fruits, what are the actionable ideas you have in terms of partnership for all three sides when it comes to multilateral intersectoral partnership. Maybe just say like one thing on the top of your head in terms of then how do we make this more equitable? And if I may also offer one avenue. I know the British Council recently published a report that is on the perception pool of creative economy in ASEAN countries. It's a part of the UK-ASEAN Creative Economy Cooperation Program. The report has identified digital readiness as a potential priority for policy collaboration. I will argue in today's context in terms of conversation, digital readiness, in fact, define the very affordance and also the R&D capacity of any nation in terms of its innovation capacity as a creative economy. So perhaps we could start there a little bit in terms of then what can we do in terms of like one big idea of program partnership for all three sides to come together.
Okay. This question is very timely as an input to all of us thinking about the hues and creative collaborations between ASEAN member state and South Korea and even the UK. One of the best ways, let me say that the Korea is very much active in nurturing and caring and even cultivating the citizenship, the widely open to the media and the digital and the technologies and the data and the AI. So we are being transformed to be a better person and more eligible and a person. That as the person is more eligible to deal with the problems by using the culture, creativity, and the digital technologies and more. I would say that the one thing is that we need a kind of common language and thinking framework and philosophical ideologies, and as well as the practical tool that to be shared with each other to understand better ourselves and the counterpart. And also sometimes South Korea is adopting very much rapidly the Western societies skills and techniques, the technologies and mentalities and the human capitals, a way of workings. But there were the problems in translating the Western society experiences and expertise into Korean context and a Korean culture and a Korean citizenship. So I would like to recommend that we need to have common understanding and a common knowledge and a common infrastructure so that we can better understand and do more jobs and even do better jobs in the context of culture and creative in the ecosystem.
Yeah, absolutely. So.
I know we're speeding through 3.5 minutes. I totally agree with what Taejun is saying, is that we did a common language. For us to get to the common language, what's important is for us to know each other better. And so conferences like today, Beyond, it's really important for us to meet people, different people, so that we can get to know each other. And it will be ideal if this could be followed up with in-depth discussions. Now, the upcoming one is that I would like to have you guys in Asia as well. We have a couple of events happening in Asia. One will be with the ASEAN Symposium. Where are the Filipinos crowd? All right, they are the ones over there. You can find out more information about that. But what we're doing with ASEAN Symposium in Manila is that we will be doing real-life collaborations that everyone would be able to see, so it's practical. The world is moving at a very fast pace. We could have discussions, we could have brainstorming, but what's important, I feel, is to transform those ideas into something practical that is sustainable. Sustainable meaning B2B, business-wise, it makes sense, right? So that's one thing that we're doing with the Philippines on the ASEAN Symposium. And Indonesia will be having our World Conference on Creative Economy in Jakarta next year. This is an event that happens every 2 years. The last one was in Uzbekistan? No.
Yes.
Was it Uzbekistan?
It was.
So usually it's 2 years in a foreign country, and then every 4 years it comes back to the host country, which is Indonesia. That should be happening at around October. One of the things that we'll be talking about is how collaborations could happen practically and fast so that it makes sense to everyone. And I think on the creative side, right, we are all creative people here. One thing that's extremely important, it has to start with ourselves before we get to know each other, is we have to know ourselves first. That's one thing. Be the authentic person that we are. Go back to the very basics of economics, which is specialization of labor. I'm sure that people in the UK, people in the Korea, and different parts of the world, each of us has our own uniqueness. Each of us carry our own culture and genes and genetics, right? When I say genetics, I don't mean biology, I mean the creative genes that each of us have. In the MediaCity, when I visited this place yesterday and was walking around the tour, I see that there's a huge technological advancement that the human capital have right here in MediaCity, and hence you're able to attract the worldwide medias to do co-production, to do post-productions here. What Korea have is totally different. What Indonesia have is different. Now, when we gather together and we know what our strength is, then collaborations could happen, and that's what I really look forward to the collaborative approach. Now, on the database itself, I believe that each country is right now cataloging in terms of what they're good at in terms of cultures, which is the USP. And for Indonesia perspective, we'd like to share that with people so that they'll be able to bring it beyond and translate it. So for example, if Indonesia have some sort of cloth that's relevant to us, right, it might not be relevant to the UK audience, but it's something that's indigenous, that's unique. It's a unique content that might be interesting. But how do you use the UK context to address it or to share it with the UK audience? I think that sort of exchanges will be good not only for the creative industry, but will be very good for humanity, so that all of us can get to know each other. One biggest concern that I have is that the world might turn into a monoculture, that the world will we have innovations, right? ChatGPT, AIs, and all that is garbage in, garbage out. If we do not start cataloging and putting or digitizing the culture and the heritage that we have, imagine the future generations when they go and speak to Gemini, when they speak to ChatGPT, what will be spit out? It will be the monoculture of what the world is. So it's really critical for all of us to do that. I know time's up, sorry.
No, we're spot on. And also, I love the ending. To be on this cultural literacy, and also for us to reflect on what next generation of humanity, for us creative people, are very good at is. So let's leave it at that positive note. Thank you all for your time. Thank you.